Gilead's oncology portfolio is at a turning point. The big question now is whether it can move from building promise to delivering real, lasting results. Kite has spent a decade building its platform, but having great infrastructure and actually growing revenue are two very different things. Gilead's business runs on three pillars: Kite cell therapy, Trodelvy, and HIV. And oncology is now expected to carry the growth as the HIV franchise shifts direction. Kite's journey went from early investment to building out treatment centers to commercial launch. And now the pressure is on to show that all of that work can actually compound into sustained growth. Kite's revenues fell roughly 7% in 2025, pulled down by a combination of stiffer competition, treatment center bottlenecks, and patients being redirected into clinical trials. Here's the interesting tension. Kite's manufacturing, its speed and scalability, is genuinely best in class. Yet that strength hasn't stopped commercial revenues from sliding. Now let's turn to anito-cel, Gilead's most important near-term catalyst in cell therapy, which is approaching a critical regulatory and commercial moment in multiple myeloma. Anito-cel brings together four compelling clinical qualities: high response rates, strong MRD negativity, no observed neurotoxicity, and a BCMA-directed mechanism, making it a serious, best-in-class contender. The path forward for anito-cel runs from BLA filing through FDA review to a potential mid-2026 launch in later-line myeloma, with earlier-line expansion to follow. The clinical data looks strong, but real questions remain. Will the safety profile translate into market share? Can manufacturing keep up with demand? And how fast can it move into earlier lines? Trodelvy's story is one of evolution. What started as a transformative $21 billion bet on the Immunomedics acquisition has settled into something more measured, but still meaningful. Early hopes for Trodelvy pointed to multi-billion expansion across many tumor types, but mixed clinical results, a bladder cancer withdrawal, and rising ADC competition have created a real gap between that vision and reality. Trodelvy brought in $1.4 billion in 2025, growing steadily on the back of metastatic breast cancer demand. Solid, but not the explosive trajectory originally envisioned. NCCN guideline inclusion, data from ASCENT-03 and ASCENT-04, and a push into earlier line TNBC are all reinforcing Trodelvy's commercial foundation and expanding its reach. Gilead is casting a wide net with Trodelvy, targeting first-line lung cancer through EVOKE-03, endometrial cancer through ASCENT-GYN-01, and a range of other TROP2 expressing tumors. Chasing multiple indications at once creates real opportunity. But it also means success depends on being consistently good across many settings, rather than dominant in one. More than any efficacy edge, it's Trodelvy's NCCN guideline positioning that drives how often physicians actually reach for it in practice. Trodelvy's profile is genuinely two-sided. Guideline breadth, flexibility, and physician familiarity on one hand, and no clear efficacy lead, toxicity concerns, and growing competition on the other. Heading into 2026 and 2027, analysts and investors have moved from skepticism to cautious interest, but real conviction in Gilead's oncology story is still waiting to be earned. Three questions are driving investor scrutiny right now. Can Trodelvy grow beyond its current base? Is cell therapy a drag or a future engine? And does Gilead's capital allocation tell a coherent oncology story? The next 18 to 24 months lay out as a sequential prove-it phase. Trodelvy label wins, anito-cel approval, clean launch execution, and ultimately oncology earning its place as a real franchise engine. Analysts already build oncology into their long-term models for Gilead, but there's a meaningful gap between being modeled as a contributor and being trusted as a validated growth engine. The final verdict on the $21 billion Immunomedics deal comes down to execution. If Trodelvy expands and grows, the deal ages well. If not, it stays strategically defensible, but short of what was promised. Simply put, 2026 and 2027 are when Gilead finds out whether its oncology portfolio can become a scalable, defensible franchise, or whether it remains a collection of promising but constrained assets.